The Lumix G9 Mark II has been announced, right? It's going to be released at the end of November, and people already have review units and they're saying they're amazing. Now, I made a video a while ago comparing the release specs to my G9 Mark I and kind of weighing in, but I want to give you 5 reasons why I think a used G9 is going to be the best camera you can get in 2023. Reason number 1 is price. So the new G9 Mark II is set to release for about, I think it's €1,800, maybe €1,900. And that's quite a lot of money when you consider that, yeah, there's some upgrades and some of them are like massive upgrades, like the video capabilities, right? But like I can find G9 bodies on MPB, eBay and all that for about €700 in quite good condition. So when you consider that you're going to be paying $1,800 for the G9 Mark II, but you're only going to pay €700 for the G9 Mark I, well then that's €1,100 you can invest in glass, which means you can get some fantastic lenses like the 100-300 or even the 12-60 Leica variant, right? I'm using the Lumix version for this right now. It's like the kit lens that came with the G9. I think it's great, but they have a other version that's like a Panasonic Leica collaboration, and it's like slightly faster, slightly sharper. Reason number 2 is ergonomics, and I don't mean this in a jokey way at all, but this camera will help you take better pictures because of its ergonomics. Sounds like a daft statement, all right? But hear me out. The camera is super comfortable in the hand, which one means you're not going to be thinking about how uncomfortable it is to shoot while you're using it. Like, you know, you're not going to be slightly balancing it on a finger and whatever. If the camera is comfortable in your hand, you're going to want to use it more. The best camera is the one you have with you all the time. And if the G9 Mark I makes you want to have it with you all the time because of its ergonomics, which it does for me, it's the best camera and you have it with you. The grip is just super deep. Like I can hold this thing while walking around with like these 3 fingers and just kind of rest my knuckles on the lens and it's not going anywhere. The rubber like stuff is super high quality. It's not degraded considering this camera is quite old. Holding it in the hand is just amazing. All of my fingers seem to know exactly where they need to be. My only gripe, and it's a small, tiny gripe that only I seem to have with this camera, is that I wish the joystick wasn't as far to the left as it is. I find I have to slightly adjust my grip for the joystick. Now, I combat this a few ways. Typically, if I'm just doing walkabout stuff, I actually have it set to fully autofocus. So it chooses where it focuses. And if I need to adjust for something specific, I can just do that with the joystick or even use the screen as a trackpad. It's like holding a pillow, right? It's like you've like taken a mold of your hand and made a camera to fit this hand specifically. And I'm not alone in thinking this. James Popsis, who moved from Micro Four Thirds to Sony, he did a video a while ago where he uses his G9 again and says it's still the most comfortable camera he's used, and he's used some big Sony bodies. Reason number 3 is just the availability of lenses. And I touch a bit on this in my 5 reasons you should shoot Micro Four Thirds video. But the Micro Four Thirds mount, because it's been around for so long, there's just so many options. You want a tiny little pancake zoom that goes from like this to this, then you can fit in your pocket? They have that. You want a lens that's the equivalent of 200 to 800 millimeters, that's weather sealed and ideal for wildlife and sports? They have that. And just being able to pair this camera with all these lenses is a joy. Reason number 4 is weather sealing. I live in Ireland. It was raining when I set out to get here. I'm currently on some old abandoned train tracks. Well, they're not abandoned, they're used now for like some like go-kart kind of thing. And the ground's really wet. It was raining a while ago. It was raining on my way here. That's why my hair's a bit wet. Camera was just out and it was fine. So I pair this most of the time. The 12-60 Lumix is on this camera, and that's fully weather sealed. I tried to get all my lenses weather sealed because I live in Ireland, where the weather's unpredictable and it can just rain any minute. In fact, it's even looking a bit grey now. And I've had this camera, normally I keep it mounted on like a rucksack strap or like just around my neck. And I've been caught out in torrential showers that have lasted like half an hour, and the camera has been absolutely fine. And if you live in an environment or you're going to an environment that's going to have constantly changing weather conditions, then weather sealing is essential. I take this thing to the beach quite a lot actually, and never had an issue with sand or dust because weather sealing. I think weather sealing is one of them things that you don't realize you need until you have a camera with it. And this weather sealing on this is truly phenomenal. If you look at some of the reviews when the G9 first came out, people are taking it to like the Arctic or like the rainforest, right? It was like heralded as this kind of ultimate photojournalism camera, I think one review said, because you can just take it to anywhere and it will just withstand it. Reason number 5 is the stabilization. So the G9 has, I think it's 9-axis stabilization. I'll put a little thing there if I'm right or wrong. And what that means is the sensor moves inside the camera, right? You can have incredibly shaky hands and get lovely smooth stills. Smooth stills? Stills. And when you pair it with a lens that's also stabilized, like the Lumix 12-60, in fact, I think nearly every Micro Four Thirds lens is stabilized. Just a caveat with that though, Olympus in-lens stabilization won't work on Lumix bodies and vice versa. With them two combined, I can handhold for 2 seconds. And for video, well, I'll try and get some B-roll today, but I found it to be pretty great. It's not as good as on the G9 Mark II. It's probably not as good as on the GH6. But if you shoot a bit of video occasionally and you want some stabilization while you're doing vloggy stuff or something like that, well then stabilization is just great. All in all, I think for €700, you cannot find a better camera body. I know people are going to say like, yeah, but it's only 20 megapixels. Yeah, do you know like what images were taken with cameras that only had like 12 megapixels back in the day? If megapixels are your one gripe with this camera, right? You have high resolution mode, where I did a video a while ago, Do Megapixels Matter, I think I called it, and I took an 80 megapixel image with this camera. And I'm going to be completely honest, I do not need 80 megapixel files in my life, and if I do, having the high res mode option there is all I need. I think that realistically about 30 megapixels is the cutoff point for when the files get a bit too big. So for transferring them onto your computer, for storage, stuff like that, I think there's definitely a diminishing return with higher megapixels. I printed stills from this at A1 and they look fine. And realistically, if you use Lightroom, there's the super resolution mode, which kinda just doubles the resolution with some fancy way. Now it's not perfect, but if you want to print big or you want a bit of extra room when cropping, that's always an option too. And realistically, if you're a photographer in 2023, you're probably using Lightroom anyway, so you have that in your arsenal. I walked along a bit further and I remembered one more thing I really like about the G9, and that's the dual SD cards, which you can use so you can have a backup of your files in camera, or you might want it so that all your video goes on one card and all your stills go on the other if you're a bit of a hybrid shooter like me. Or you might want so all your JPEGs go on one card and all your RAWs go on the other. I absolutely love my G9. I can't fault it. I see that the new one's been released and it looks tempting. I think that's a bit of gear acquisition syndrome talking. Yeah, if you like this video, please give it a like. If you want to see more stuff about the Micro Four Thirds system, then give a subscribe, because that's what I'm going to be doing. And yeah, what do you think? Do you think a G9 in 2023 is viable with 20 megapixels?